Alright guys, this is the Unit 2 study guide. I'm going to go ahead and read it off from eClass so you can follow along, okay? So number 1 says, at a pet store there are 6 turtles, 4 dogs, 3 birds, and 2 cats. What is the ratio of dogs to turtles? What is the ratio of turtles to total creatures? And write the ratios in simplest form. So I'm going to go ahead and abbreviate 3D means 3 dogs, because the first question says, what is the ratio of dogs to turtles? So there are 3 dogs, and remember, there are 3 ways we can write a ratio, right? We can write it using a colon, as a fraction, and using the word to. So 3 dogs to, using the colon, turtles. How many turtles there are? There are 6 turtles, so 6T. However, the question does say you need to write in simplest form. So 3 to 6 can simplify to 1 dog for every 3 turtles. Okay? So you can just find the greatest common factor of 3 and 6. We can also write that as a fraction, which is how you'll always see me write it. 3D over 6 turtles. 3 dogs over 6 turtles, or 3 dogs to 6 turtles, simplifying to 1/3. Alright? And you can also see it written as a sentence. So 3 dogs to every 6 turtles. And that simplifies to 1 dog for every 3 turtles. Perfect. Alright, so that was just the first part of the question. We'll label that part A. Okay, part B is asking about what is the ratio of turtles to total. So we know that there are 6 turtles, but how many total creatures are there? I'm going to go ahead and spell out total so we don't get confused by T and total. 2 T's, okay? There are 6 turtles, 4 dogs, 3 birds, and 2 cats. The total amount of creatures there are 15 creatures. We have to include turtles in that total creatures because they're a part of the total, okay? So if you add 6 turtles, 4 dogs, 3 birds, and 2 cats, you should get 15 total creatures. But we can simplify that with, if I did a little side math, the greatest common factor of 6 and 15, say 3, would be 2 to 5, meaning for every 2 turtles, there are 5 total creatures. And again, we said we can write that 3 different ways, so like that, as a fraction, 2t over 5 total, and we can write it as a sentence. 2 turtles to every 5 creatures. And then keep in mind again, if it ever asks to total creatures, you're always including the first part of that ratio. You don't exempt or you don't take out the turtles because they're already stated here. So you add them to your total for 15. Okay. Alright, question 2 says write 3 ratios that are equivalent to 8 over 10. Okay, I'm going to say 8 over 10. I'm just going to go ahead and make 5 ratios, 2 smaller ones, and 2 ratios that are bigger. Okay, so again, I said you can see ratios in 3 ways. I'm going to use fractions. Okay, so we can simplify 8 over 10, and the easiest simplification for that is for this. That's super easy, right? I know I got from 8 to 4 by dividing by 2, and I need to make it equivalent, so I will do the same to my denominator. If I divide 10 by 2, I get 5, right? And I told you guys, there's a way you can check yourselves with this. If you take your calculator and divide your original ratio, which is your original fraction, 8, divided by 10, gives you a decimal of 0.8, okay? that 0.8 means that's what this fraction should be as well. So if I divide 4 over 5, 4 divided by 5, I get 0.8 as well. That means we did that one correctly. That is equivalent because 0.8 is equal to 0.8. Okay, so let's make another one. We can use 8 over 10, or we can even use 4 over 5, but we'll stick with 8 over 10. Okay, so I know that 8 over 10, I can also scale by, I guess, dividing by 8. Okay, because I know 8 divided by 8 is 1. Okay, so if I use that same mentality for my denominator, 10 divided by 8 is going to give me a decimal 1.25. Okay, so let's check if that is correct. 1 divided by 1.25 is equal to 0.8, so we were correct. That is equivalent to 8/10. Now we can scale up. So the same way you divided by 2, we can multiply by 2 on the top and on the bottom, so your numerator and your denominator. 8. The way you read this, guys, is 8 times 2, 16. 10 times 2 is 20. Alright, if you don't know if you're correct, let's go ahead and check it. 16 divided by, I think it was 20, gives you 0.8, so we were correct. That is equivalent, meaning equal. Alright, again, you can use 16 over 20 to find another equivalent ratio, or you can keep using 8/10. I'm going to keep using 8/10. I'm going to scale up by multiplying by 3. Okay, I know 8 times 3 gives me 24. If I do that for my denominator, I get 30. Now let's check that 24/30ths is equivalent to 8/10. So 24 divided by 30 does indeed give you 0.8. So that one is equivalent as well. Okay, so I gave you guys 5 equivalent fractions to 8/10. You can come up with thousands. Okay, let's go to number 3. Number 3 says Maddie needs 18 yards of material for 12 costumes. How much material will she need for 15 costumes? So immediately when it gives you some sort of comparison, like it does in the question, 8 yards of material for 12 costumes, I want you guys to get in the habit of seeing that as a ratio, some sort of comparison. So if I see that as a ratio, I'm going to set it up as a ratio, okay? It says 8 yards of material for 12 costumes, and I'm going to abbreviate costumes with a C. So it takes 8 yards of costumes to, or 8 yards of material to create 12 costumes. It asks me how much material will she need for 15 costumes. So if I know that my ratio is yards per costumes, my ratio that I'm looking up must also be yards per costumes. So I'm going to go ahead and say yards per costumes. Alright? Again, the question says how much material. That's what we're solving for. So which one of these units are going to tell you material? The yards or the costumes? The yards. So I'm going to put an X here because that's what we're looking for. How much material. And then it also gives you the bottom piece. Okay? It says will she need for 15 costumes. It tells me the amount of costumes I'm looking for. 15. So you guys can all do this, and I want you to use that strategy. Okay? So if I know I can go from 12 to 15 by multiplying by something, I'm going to go ahead and find out what that something is. So my strategy for that is always dividing the bigger number, which is 15 in this case, by the smaller number to find your scaling factor. So 15 divided by 12 gives you 1.25. Okay? So I have 1.25 as my scaling factor. So we're going to look to see, because we always want our scaling factor to go toward our x. So from 8 to x, I need to figure out x. So if I look from 12 to 15, the same direction, we're going toward the X. That's how I decided where my arrows go. I'm going from 12 to 15. That means I'm going to a bigger number. So I have to increase. That means I multiply. So I will be multiplying both of those, 8 and 12, by 1.25. So I'm going to multiply 8 times 1.25. I get 10. So X is equal to 10 yards, and I want you guys to write this as a sentence. It makes more sense. For 15 costumes. Now, how in the world can I check if I was right? So just like the previous question, we can check we're right by dividing these fractions and looking at those decimals. So 8 divided by 12 gives me 0.6 repeating about. Let's see, is that equal to 10 divided by 15? So 10 divided by 15. Yes, I get the exact same thing. So that's about the right answer. Okay, so my answer would be 10 yards of yards for 15 costumes. Okay, let's go to number 4. Number 4 says, Wilma can swim 800 meters in 4 minutes. Exactly like number 3. Notice how it's giving you a comparison. Okay, 800 meters in 4 minutes. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and set that up. 800 meters, gonna abbreviate with an M, in 4 minutes. Okay, we're gonna create a comparison, because I know whenever they give me a comparison like that, I'm gonna have to find something else. This is how far can she swim in 1 minute. Exactly how this is meters per minute, my ratio here is meters per minute. Alright, but the key thing about this question is that it's a unit rate, because it's asking you per one of something. How far? If it's asking how far, that means I'm solving for distance. Minutes is time. I'm not solving for time. I don't need to figure out time, because it tells me how far can she swim in 1 minute. So if I'm finding the unit rate, I can go ahead and set up that proportion. No need to divide the bigger number by the smaller number, because I know what that scaling factor is, and I know that 4 divided by the scaling factor of 4 would give me 1. Okay, if I do the same thing for my numerator, I would get X is equal to 200. Okay, so 200 meters, she would swim 200 meters in 1 minute. Okay, so I'm going to check this, right? 800, I'm going to check by dividing. 800 divided by 4 gives me 200. If I do 200 divided by 1, I also get 200. 200 is equal to 200. I was correct. Okay, so let's move on to number 5. Number 5 reads, alright, so number 5 reads, why is 12 apples for $12.60 not a unit rate? So I'm not going to write this down because you guys, I want to talk to you about this. We always said a unit rate is always per one of something. 12 apples for $12.60 is not comparing per one of. It doesn't tell you per one apple or per $1. So that's not a unit rate. Okay? So let's move on to number 6. Always has to be per one of. Okay? Don't forget that. Number 6 says you can buy 6 frozen pizzas at Publix for $24.90. Or 5 frozen pizzas at Kroger for $21. So we were just given 2 comparisons there. The question is asking which store is offering the better deal. And you have to justify your answer. So remember I told you if it's a better deal, you're finding the unit rate of 2 separate things. So we're going to label those 2 separate things, those 2 separate stores. So Publix and Kroger. Okay, so the ratio it gives you for Publix is 6 frozen pizzas for $24.90. Okay? Kroger's comparison is 5 frozen pizzas, 5P, over $21. Okay? Please, please, please label your numbers. If you don't do that, guys, I can't help you be successful. All right? So I'm going to set this equal to another fraction. Set this equal to another fraction so I can find the unit rate. Okay? We want to know which store is offering the better deal. So I'm going to go ahead and label pizzas per dollars. Pizzas per dollar. In my brain, it would be much easier to think about the cost of one pizza versus $1. Okay? So I'm going to find the unit rate of one pizza. Okay? One pizza for Kroger as well. All right? And we want to find out how much money it's going to cost for one pizza. And I'm going to compare. So if I look at my comparison from 6 to 1, that's pretty simple. I'm going to a smaller number, so I have to divide. And if I divide 6 by 6, I get 1. So if I do the same thing for my denominator in order to make an equivalent ratio, I would get $24.90 divided by 6. That would give me $4.15 per pizza. Okay? So we found out the price per pizza at Publix. Let's look at Kroger. Okay, same concept. How did I get from 5 to 1? I'm going down in a number, so I divide by 5. Do the same thing for my denominator. Divide by 5. So $21 divided by 5 gives you x is equal to 4.2. 4.2. Remember I told you with money, that means we can put a 0 there. That's $4.20 per pizza. I'm not going to write out the justification. You guys can do that. So my better buy would be Publix because it's 5 cents cheaper per pizza. Okay?